How to avoid injuries in young children. The year was 2015. The dance studio that I danced at had recently had a change in ownership, and therefore a change in teachers. At the time, I was the only one at the studio that was on point. I was the only one that was ready to be on point. Unfortunately, many of the other students and parents thought otherwise. So I grew up dancing with a specific group of people. Some were older than me and had been dancing longer than me. So when I was put on to point, the other students in my class were very upset that they were also not moving up and being put on point. This all happened before the new owner came. But once the new owner and the new teachers came, they wanted to please all the angry parents and make them stay dancing at the studio. So they put everyone in my class on a point, even though they were years away from being ready. This is something that should not happen. I spent the next 4 years watching as my classmates, my friends, injure themselves over and over again. This is why I'm giving this speech today. We have a very big problem in our society. Many of us just want to please others instead of doing the safe option that could possibly cause some anger and discord in others. Another big problem our society has is some of our parents see the professional games and the Olympics, and they want their children to be that successful. So what do? They push their children harder and harder. They put their kids into these sports at a very young age and then make them practice for hours a day. If they want their children to get a scholarship in football, for college, say, then they make them practice every day for hours. They also put an extreme amount of pressure on these children, on their mental health as well as their physical health. The pressure to always do your best and that failure is not an option must be very intense. See, this is not okay. As a society, we need to accept the fact that we should not put our young children in any situation, but specifically, for the purpose of this speech, any sporting situations that will cause them bodily injury and or harm, pain for the rest of their lives. In this speech, I will discuss the problem of allowing young children to start sports at a young age, or before they are ready, and then offer a solution to that problem. So, what is the problem we are looking at today? The problem is that so many of our nation's children become injured when it is so easy to avoid an injury. What are these preventable injuries I speak of? They are the injuries that children get when they start a sport before they can comprehend how to perform the techniques required in that sport. Since I have been using ballet as an example, I will continue to use that. Ballet will injure a person even if they are professionals. This is just because it is full of repeated movements that are horrible on a person's body. And I got that information from Sabrina Quadra-Gillian from the 2015 article. So, young children, meaning around the ages of 4 or so, have no body awareness. If you tell them to point their feet or raise their left leg to a 45-degree angle or to turn over their right shoulder while keeping their feet in a certain position, they would just look at you blankly, not understanding anything that you just said. So, these children cannot understand what you mean when you give them directions on technique. This just leaves the children doing basically whatever they want, leaving no mind to how their joints are aligning and how their muscles and ligaments are pulling, leaving the children vulnerable to all the different strains ballet puts on a body. This is, of course, the exact same thing that children go through for every sport out there. These different injuries can eventually cause arthritis, especially for ballerinas. There is also the unfortunate possibilities of getting concussions. My 14-year-old cousin has already had a couple concussions. This is absolutely ridiculous. Concussions are so bad for a person. These concussions can eventually lead to brain injuries, which is not good. Now, what could be a solution to this problem? It is a rather easy solution, one made of common sense. The solution is to have a set age limit for when a child should start their sports. This age limit should obviously be different for the different sports. For instance, a child should be around 8 years old to start ballet and a minimum of 12 years old to move up on a point. And I got that age number from the Journal of Dance Medicine and Science, 2009. It is recommended you be at least 12 because you need your bones to be fully developed so that you do not fracture a foot or a metatarsal or tarsal or something like that. It is recommended you be at least 12 years of age to start soccer, and I got this from the British Journal of Sports Medicine from 2015. This will reduce the risk of cam deformity in their futures. So for those of you who do not know what cam deformity is, it is basically a bone spur at the top of your femur, right at the hip joint. So when you're bending your leg, this bone spur grinds the femur bone and the cartilage with the pubic bone and the cartilage. So another name for cam deformity is cam infringement, which kind of explains a little better what it is. Anyways, back to the topic at hand. In order to make this age limit a possibility, we would have to convince the local business owners, the school boards, and the local coaches to raise the age requirements for accepting students. For instance, at the dance studio I danced and taught at, they could take away the baby ballerina classes. There are plenty of other things that could take their places if the studio is concerned about losing that class's money. The local community could, instead of having a soccer team or a baseball team or football team, they could have something similar to a Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts group. They could just have a set time each week where they could get together and they could play tag or another such game, or they can make little crafts or something. This would take away those chances of possible injury. We definitely do not want to have lasting pain. Unfortunately, getting any kind of injury at any age will stay with you. It will lessen slightly, but it will still cause pain. For instance, from the Archives of Orthopedic and Trauma Surgery, they tell us of a study they did on the recovery of ACL injuries in kids 15 years of age and younger. Most of these children had a relatively good recovery after their surgery, but none were 100% back. There's a very important statement in this article, and it says, quote, "Management of ACL injuries in young athletes remains a challenge. This injury should not be neglected and constitutes a major event for a child. ACL tear before 15 is a serious injury that can compromise return to competitive sports," end quote. This statement just reinforced my theory on how you can recover from an injury, but it will always stay with you. And I got this from Morvan Buginek-Gravelou from the 2020 article. This is why we need to let the children be children as long as possible, and therefore have them avoid injuries as much as possible. This could be a very easy fix if we could get our communities behind us and agree that we need age limits on our sports teams and groups. Let us protect our youth and keep them from having to feel this never-ending pain. So if you ever think about coaching some kind of sport, remember these dangers and think about waiting to teach those youngins.